What the fuck are we doing on a Tuesday night? Oh, I know. It's time for another double shot week of the Big Bad Devil Daddy himself, Reaper's Underground. And with me tonight, I have a special edition. A little bit more on the serious side, but I think we're still going to have a blast either way. We got stories. We got all kinds of bullshit to talk about. And please welcome Magister Bill M. of the Church of Satan. How are you doing, my brother?
Doing well. Thanks for having me, Reaper.
Absolutely. Thank you all out there in the comment section as it's lighting up as I can see. And just remember, let's keep it fun and happy and let's just have a good time together. But before we get started, we're going to take a quick commercial break to our brothers over at the Villain Arts Tattoo Conventions. Check it out. That's right. Me and my Dark Queen Mischief will be in Denver on July 21st through the 23rd, which is their Villain Arts Tattoo Convention. We'll be there signing stuff. Come on down, check us out, hang out, and check out the scenery. All right, we are back with Magister Bill M. How the hell is it over there in Boston?
Yeah, I actually just moved from Boston to the sticks of New Hampshire. I'm like
got tired of the city.
Yeah, I used to live in New Hampshire. I've been wanting to move back for a while, and I have a place now with like no neighbors. It's wonderful, like 13 acres, and
you know, I can feel that on a spiritual level, honestly, because here in Nebraska, in our little town of like 5,000 or less, it's very quiet. I mean, the worst thing you hear is maybe a loud truck go by.
Yeah,
not the constant, you know, motorcycles and cars and all the ambulances and whatnot. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the city, although I've lived in quite a few. But well, that's awesome. I'm glad you're getting settled in and enjoying things. So you have yourself one of the best podcasts on the topic of Satanism, and that is Satansplain. That is how I found you.
Thank you.
And just absolutely been enjoying. I mean, it's got a lot of laughs with it, but it's a lot of really good information for those that don't really understand this topic or severely confused about this topic. So I'm sure we're going to cover all of that a little bit later. But let's start with where it all began for you. How did you come to Satanism and what part of your life?
Well, I grew up in the 1980s, so I grew up through the whole satanic panic, and I had heard about yourself as well. So, you know how it was. I heard the word Satanism. I saw some people on TV, sometimes Church of Satan members, sometimes random devil worshippers, or maybe hired actors, who knows. And I didn't really think much about Satanism, though, until like the mid 1990s, where I reached a point in my life where I was looking for something, a new, religion, new structure. And I had researched lots of different religions up to that point. I practiced lots of different things, but stumbled across the Satanic Bible, which I had, casually flipped through as a rebellious teenager back in the late 80s, and didn't really absorb it as an adult. But now that I was an adult, early 90s, read it, and it was like the truth hit me like a ton of bricks. Obviously that's not going to be the same with everybody, because this isn't a religion for everybody, but for those who it fits, I think it fits well.
Real quick before we get in a little bit more in depth there, I do have a question from out in the comment section. It says, what are the different religions that you studied?
So I was raised in a Catholic household in a pretty Jewish neighborhood.
Oh, wow.
And I had a childhood friend who was Hindu, and I got into New Age stuff.
I love that term.
As a young teen, I was a devout Wiccan, if you can believe that, at some point in high school.
I think the term they prefer today is Green Witch. That is the actual place that they come from. But then again, most Wiccans don't know that.
Yeah. So, but I mean, I did that. I took a world religion class as well in high school.
Yeah.
So I studied that. I've always been fascinated by the topic of religion in and of itself, and having conversations with anybody really about religion. But yeah, it was a while before I finally found Satanism.
And what kind of drew you to it, other than just you just started thumbing through it? And
well, I know different parts are going to hit Satanists, to different levels. The thing that really hit me the hardest was the chapter, "The God You Save May Be Yourself," because I had a belief in the back of my mind that I kept pushing to the back of my mind, that there really is only the carnal. There's no spiritual. That, when I have these experiences that in the past I've chalked up to spirituality of some kind, it was really just something in my own mind and my own projections and manifestations and, things of that nature. And the path I was on is described pretty much just like that chapter about, going from one spiritual belief to another, trying to rationalize more and more emotions that I shouldn't feel shameful about in the first place, or
so far as it doesn't harm or hurt anyone, absolutely not at all. Doesn't matter, what your creed, what makes you, as long as you're not like a murderer or something, fucking terrible beyond that.
Making it difficult for
certainly isn't satanic. Yeah. So, absolutely. And yes, KD, basically at the root of Satanism, in a way, we kind of are our own gods at that point. Yes. It's all about, the self, strengthening the self-care, self-love, and, what helps you heal, or how you live your life. We got a real big question here, so I'll try to dumb this one down a little bit for you. So my first and big question I want to ask is about crosses. What does the
black officially stand for? Is it the same upside down cross? Okay, so crosses are inverted crosses. So, I mean, you could go historically and argue that like the cross itself didn't start with Christianity, that you can find older variations of it in old pagan sources like that. Interestingly enough, the Jehovah's Witnesses, for example, do not wear crosses because they firmly believe Jesus was not crucified on that, traditional cross shape, because they say the Romans used like a thing that looked like a capital T or an X, or I think they believe it was a stake. So, but anyway, regardless of that, the cross as we know it today, is a symbol of Christianity. And so it would follow that an inverted cross would be the rejection of Christianity, something blasphemous. Now, I know some people like to point out that that's just one meaning of the inverted cross. You do see some denominations of Christianity that use the inverted cross to represent the cross of St. Peter,
Right.
because Peter, one of the apostles, was reportedly crucified upside down because he didn't think he was worthy to be crucified the same way Jesus was. And the Pope even has in Vatican City has the inverted cross on like the back of the throne. Now, some people take that and say, "Oh, well, you're using inverted cross. That's actually a Christian symbol, and that's not satanic at all." It's like, well, it depends on the context. It so it's like the number 666. Like, it doesn't actually mean anything in Satanism per se.
Nope.
But the fact of the matter is, both 666 and inverted crosses have a very strong psychological association to them. And, people, even who may not be particularly religious, may feel a little uncomfortable, when you see these things. So I think as Satanists, we can certainly utilize those things.
It's like when something as simple as 3 numbers are pounded into your head, that this means the ultimate evil, and that you are, Damien, from the Omen. Suddenly, everyone's afraid of it and just associate that number.
Yeah.
And in most, even ancient Satanism, the number 9 has been referenced more. So whenever somebody goes, "Oh, you're all 666 and shit, aren't you?" And I'm like, "No, 9."
No, it's 9. Yeah. Yeah.
Always cracks me up.
Yeah, it's explained a little bit more in that final chapter of the Satanic Rituals, Anton LaVey, about 9 being the carnal number and all that.
Exactly.
So I'm a mouse.
As a matter of fact, myself, I wear the inverted cross just as a symbol of the opposite or the adversary, which is what Satan represents anyway. At least the concept, because there is no big red-tailed, nasty coming up from the rocks. Because if that was true, it'd be snatching people up left and right in this day and age. So awesome. So as you started to make this, into your practice, how did you get involved with the church?
Well, I went online at this time, and around this point in history, there was, in the late 90s, not many people online and not many online resources, for Satanism. There was like the Usenet group, alt.satanism, which was about 50% spam, and then like the other remaining 50%, 25% was just, Jesus freaks making hate posts. And then you had out of that remaining thing a mix of devil worshippers and actual Satanists and people I don't know what they were from. So it was a lot to sift through. But in the end, I came to the conclusion of, okay, the Satanic Bible, this is what I believe, this is, what makes sense to me. And it seems that the other organizations I found were either the Church of Satan, groups claiming to be Satanists, but having almost nothing in common, it seemed, with Satanism. Temple of Set and people like that, devil worshippers. And it's like, no, that, I'm an atheist. That's not what I'm into. Or the third category were people that claim to be about the Satanic Bible, but seem to spend all of their time just bashing Anton LaVey and talking about heavy metal, and like that was it. And so it seemed, I came to the conclusion, okay, it seems like, the Church of Satan is still the real deal, the thing that best represents this belief system that I adhere to. So I ended up joining, I think about a year or two after I had read the Satanic Bible.
Awesome. I kind of came to it during that satanic panic that we were talking about, because obviously record companies figured out that if you use symbolism that, goes against everyone, it's going to make kids want it.
Yeah.
So, I'm not going to lie. I fell prey to it. Slayer, uh, that was probably the first
Yeah.
time I ever saw, the imagery, the Baphomet and,
Yeah.
the sigil and stuff in the background.
Yeah. And I think it's perfectly understandable that, some Satanists connect to that sort of stuff, especially in their
Yeah.
youth, because you're young and trying to assert identity, and you're dealing with these clueless authority figures, whether in school or parents or church or whatever, and Satan is the adversary of that. So
Absolutely.
see how
All
it
my
goes
friends
in.
were, oh, I'm going to confirmation. Are you going to confirmation? I'm like, no, I grew up in a godless home. It's true. My parents were not strict on religion. As a matter of fact, my father, he was a Catholic, totally denounced that whole thing because of obvious reasons.
Yeah.
But my mom was always just like, oh, well, as long as you say a prayer every now and again, you're good.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right. So all these people all week long just living it up, being indulgent as fuck. And then on Sunday, they're forgiven and it's all good.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's not attractive to me.
Yeah. I was forced to go through confirmation, that sacrament as a teenager. My parents are Catholics. And what kind of bothered me the most about that was the fact that I seemed to take the religion more seriously than my parents, because my parents had the attitude of, okay, this is the last thing you have to do, and then you'll be done with it. I'm like, is that the way you should really be thinking about your religion? That it
Right. Like,
finishes at some point,
this
then
is your last
you're all done with
punishment
that?
before you're in.
Yeah. In retrospect, though, it's like they came to realize, okay, it was kind of wrong, to force me to do it. But I came to realize, like, from their perspective, like, my mom was a CCD teacher and they were here in this little town, and if they didn't have their son go through this confirmation, they would have to answer, to the parish and all that. So there was social pressure on them to do that.
Well, sure.
So, I don't resent them.
Nobody wants their ass whooped.
Yeah.
So you're already kind of, bullied into this thing. And then the fear comes in. And, it's like, oh, one step wrong, and, you're going into a lake of fire. So I could see why, the country, the world at large would look at this in such a negative way. And because, they want people to believe in their religion and, therefore keep churches in business. Of course, in this country, it's the only country in the world that's, freedom of religion. And, the great Anton, man, I still say he's been taken from us too soon, but, he had a vision, he had an idea. Did he go about it in interesting ways? Yes, he did. But the philosophy is just as relevant as it was back then than it is now. We're almost 60 years, or at least getting close to it, because obviously that was a little far-fetched for the times, but I understand it though. And how is it any different than rituals that any other church, denomination, whatever, they have their own way, as do we. So I think a lot of people wonder why all the different masks and, obviously his headdress and stuff like that. What is your take on that part of it? Like, let's say doing the Black Mass.
Yeah. Well, I think he explains it well in the Satanic Bible and other writings as well, that there is a philosophical component, of course, to Satanism, but he points out that, humans do have this eternal need for ritual and fantasy and enchantment. And not all people get it from religion. I've said I don't think it's any coincidence that a lot of atheists are, a lot of disproportionately, they are really into science fiction, for example. And, we'll know everything about Star Trek or Star Wars and collect all the characters and all that. And that is kind of a ritualistic, symbolic thing that they're I think, enacting on. But as Anton LaVey points out, a lot of the religions, you could say, use their ritual sort of to reinforce their unfounded beliefs, really. And so they say, well, if you can use rituals to sustain that, you can use ritual to sustain, the truth as we see it. And so you can express that, take that philosophically, but express that in a way that goes just beyond the intellect, not anything supernatural, but, more the emotional component. That's where that comes out.
Absolutely. And I have to, I was just watched South Park, let's say a couple days ago, and it was the episode about how, terrorists were invading our imagination.
Yes, the 3-part Imagination Land episode.
And I was like, that is the same. That's no different when it comes to like our rituals and the things that we do and the way we look.
Yeah.
It's like something, you have an image in your mind and you see a lot of imagery. There are things that just strike you.
Yeah.
It could be a piece of fucking art.
Yeah. Well, I hear a lot of people
becomes real for people.
Well, I hear a lot of people who try bashing Satanism, especially on Twitter, saying like, "Oh, you're a bunch of LARPers," and it's like, well, all religion.
I hate that word.
Yeah, I mean, all religion is live action role play. All religious ritual is live action role play. We're just the only religion who admits it.
It's no different. No different than a priest that puts on 5-6 fucking robes, fucking sweating, on a Sunday.
We know that when we do it, there's a psychological reason behind it, and goes back to Jungian things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Another question here. Oh, JD, absolutely, brother. JD says, he says, I agree. It's ridiculous though when people see my moniker, or is it moniker? I think he means moniker. They're like, you're going to hell. And it's like, at least 3 or 4 times daily, people stop me and go, why do you want to give up paradise? And I just simply tell them, I said, hell is paradise for me.
Yeah.
It's not what you think it is. And then we have a question for you, sir.
Okay.
My second question is about the pentagram. How did that start and become what it is today?
So the pentagram in and of itself, the 5-pointed star with or without the circle, that's something that means a lot of different things in a lot of different cultures.
Absolutely.
You can go back to the Pythagoreans, who had that for their order. You can even find a few Christian churches in existence that use some form of the pentagram, the 5 wounds of Christ. But I mean, the sigil Baphomet that you see, like that specific symbol, there's a really nice page all about it on churchofsatan.com. You can read about the history of that specific symbol. And that specific symbol is actually trademarked by the Church of Satan. You can go to the U.S. Patent and Trademark website and actually look it up. There's a patent number and stuff on it.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah. And
it was Anton that put some of the symbols within the circle.
Well, actually, it came before that. So there's an older variation that has the same thing with where it says like Samuel Lilith on it. That goes back to, I want to say Levy, but I think that's actually wrong. But sometime like the 1800s, there was one like that. Then there was a book published in the mid 20th century by Maurice Bessy. It was like the history of witchcraft, and I have a copy. It's a nice, huge coffee table book with all pictures of all witchcraft related things, throughout the centuries.
Drawings.
Yeah. But the front cover of that had, the sigil with the words removed, and Anton LaVey saw that and said, "Wow, that's actually really striking when it's done that way."
Yeah.
So, the Church of Satan looked into it, and there was not a trademark holder on it. So, we took it, trademarked it, and just stylized the letters a little differently, just in shape and all that.
Absolutely. So, I mean, And I'm surprised no one's really asked about Baphomet. You find that not just by Levi, who drew what
Mhm.
Baphomet signified, but during the early missions back in like medieval times, when they were trying to convert all the pagans into Christianity, they would actually point to the different symbols and stuff that they were using in their cultural beliefs and said, oh well, that's the devil. So what is your take on Baphomet in general?
Well, I think even more general, we have the goat, and that kind of goes back to not only pagan symbols and the driving of the scapegoat, the literal pack all your sins into the goat and
Yep.
send that away. There's also a line in the Holy Bible and the Gospels about Jesus separating like the goat from the sheep. And I think archetypically that's what the goat represents in its significance in Satanism, because we, sheep. It's a term that gets overly used a lot these days. But somebody who's dependent on the masses and doesn't want to be an independent thinker. Archetypically speaking, the goat is the opposite of that. Somebody who's the goats, don't really herd in the big groups and literally, will
And the
lock horns and stuff
outsiders.
with others. Yeah, they're kind of really aggressive and stuff, not docile. So, it's another fitting symbol.
Absolutely. I kind of like though the way Baphomet represents duality.
Yeah.
You have man or man as animal,
Hmm.
and then of course having female features as
Yeah.
well. Oh, real quick before I finish my thought there. Yep, hearing some weird noises. I think your camera might. I mean, I don't hear it
Picking
now.
up
It
noise
just
too.
kind of like does it every now and again,
Okay.
just to let you
Sorry.
know.
All right. Sorry about that. Because
So,
I haven't had a hell of a time with the lighting too,
uh,
trying to get things right. Because
oh,
like
you
I
look
said, I just
wonderful,
moved, so I
man.
had to
You look
pull
wonderful.
cameras out of the box. So, all right.
I mean, you could do a little dance for us if you want.
Yeah. Plug.
But
Early.
yeah, I mean, I like the way Baphomet has kind of taken on, and people look at it more philosophically and not so bastardly, like it's just some horrible fucking thing. Um, and just like Christianity, there are so many different offshoots of every belief system. So Kyler says, "This my goat and breathe fire and farts rainbows prepared to burn magically."
Okay, that's original.
I love you, brother. Well, most of my viewers out there in Black Flame Land and all of my new viewers here tonight all seem to see the hilarity in so many of these stupid, superstitious bullshit. That you've had to deal with, I've dealt with practically my whole life, and anyone else that is a church member. So it's like, when does the madness stop? So my next question, and I'm sure a lot of people out there that are seeing you and hearing you for the first time probably want to know the same thing. What do you think of everyone else that is kind of going around, um, saying they are a Satanist or they belong to some Satanist group? Maybe they have a church somehow. I don't know. But what do you think of these folks?
Well, they're the pseudo Satanists. It's called really quite simply. It's not a new phenomenon. It's something that's shown up over the years. Um, there are, I mean, even I remember, going back to the Satanic Panic days. You would have these teenagers who really got a little. I don't want to say too much into metal, but yeah, I'm almost like too much into metal and stylizing themselves after Christian propaganda of what supposed Satanists do, and they think like, oh, I'm a Satanist, and just because they're angry and they can identify with the symbol, but then they don't really channel that anywhere else. They don't really have any structure or anything to it.
Little
So there are
Johnny, do
those
you
types. It's
worship
again
the
nothing new.
Lord?
Hmm? Sorry, I missed that.
Absolutely.
I missed what you just said.
Oh,
You
I
know,
was just being silly. It made me think of, so many movies where they're like, "Do you worship the Dark Lord?"
yeah. So yeah, but you have people who get their information on Satanism from Christian propaganda or horror movies or maybe heavy metal albums and stuff, where it's just that aesthetic and not really taking anything else to it. The fact of the matter is, the Church of Satan was the first to establish a religion calling itself Satanism. Because I know some people will quickly object, like, "Oh, well, you're saying that your version of Satanism is good and bad. That's like the Catholics saying the Protestants are heathens." Like, no, it's not. It's more like a Catholic trying to explain why somebody who bought a nun costume from a Halloween store is not a Catholic. It's different denominations of the same religion. I've explained this on Satansplain before. Different denominations of the same religion are denominations because they have something in common theologically. And all of these other groups I've seen, for the most part, don't really have anything to do with the Satanic Bible. We'll just slap the name Satanism on something, mishmash of things.
Well, I mean, you can't take a piece of corn and call it a fruit. I mean, it's a vegetable.
Yeah.
So taking, Satanism as I'm a Satanist and have zero to do with anything that it actually stands for, it doesn't make it Satanism, folks. None of them.
I wouldn't really care if more of these people just called it something else. If they, some people do are into demonology but theistic Satanism, that's an oxymoron. There are no theistic Satanists. They're devil worshippers with a vocabulary problem. That's what I say.
I love it. So pop culture, I think, as a whole, is just as responsible as, let's say, any Christian belief that damns anything that the church stands for, any of our beliefs at all. And then it gets turned around and sensationalized in films. Even though I love The Exorcist, I love it. I always want Pazuzu to win, but I know that's just not how movies work. Or any of those damn exorcism movies. I mean, you see it's become its own genre now. But it's really fantasy. But some people legitimately think that these things exist. And, it doesn't help. I mean, heavy metal certainly didn't. I mean, they just wanted to make $1 million. That's what they wanted to do. There was legit, and I will say this till my dying breath, there's only one legit true Satanist that came out of the 80s and to this day is a true LaVeyan Satanist, and that is King Diamond.
That we know of. There may have been
that we know of.
That are,
the most, I don't know, popular, I guess you could say. Because, there is black metal. Which I'm sure you're familiar with that. What is your take on them bringing all the super evil stuff? Now, obviously, it started because of the religious oppression in their country, particularly Norway. That was their way of I just want to bastardize everything about the Christian religion. But what do you think of what's your take on black metal? Just curious.
Well, I mean, it's the music in and of itself. I just personally never could get into it.
It's definitely not for everybody.
It's fine. I have no problem with people who are into it. And I mean, appropriating devilish themes in music or any other art, I mean, that's been around for a long time. And if people want to do that to express some kind of, blasphemy, that I don't really have any control over that. And it's kind of makes sense. We chose the name Satanism because, we philosophically embrace the things that being given the devil's name, pride, lust, greed, so on. I explained this at the beginning of the intro, Satansplain, my show. Um,
Absolutely.
until it gets to monotheistic Satanism. Yeah, that's where it gets kind of, ridiculous in trying to. You're just doing theatrics, which is fine if you're just being, theatrical, but don't kid yourself into thinking you're doing something, new religious here by just inverting Christianity.
I
I mean,
mean, honestly, they couldn't conjure a common cold.
the blasphemy is understandable when
That's fine. I'm
you're
fine
trying
with
to.
the
Yeah,
aesthetic.
it's understandable, I think, especially if you yourself are a victim of religious indoctrination and you want to get this thing out of your system and deprogram yourself. But you got to move on eventually. Within that, and Satanism doesn't end with the mere rejection of Christianity. There's a whole wealth of other stuff on building yourself and all of these things you can explore. It's like once you just get the Christianity, whatever it is, out of your system, then start to build on. There's a saying, phase one Satanism, which is used to refer to people who kind of are overly focused on the blasphemy, and the ritual stuff. And again, it's okay to be into that. I'm not, I like a good religion bashing joke as much as the next Satanist, but there's more to it than that.
Yeah, there's definitely nothing wrong with that. I mean, a lot of the art is very dark, and like you said, the blasphemy end of it. I mean, yeah, it does tie into what we believe because it's what they paint us out to be. It's how they treat us out in the world.
Yeah.
There's a really good question here, and this will tie into my next comment.
Okay.
What's the dumbest thing you've had someone say about your religion on the street?
Oh my God. I don't know. I've heard so many. I mean, I've run into the people who've said like some really dumb things. I don't. But like the dumbest. That's the beauty of Twitter and like social media. It's like you read something and think like, wow, that's the dumbest thing I'll ever see this year, and then no, you're proven wrong the next day.
Right.
Something else. Like my goodness. I think these days the dumbest thing I'm hearing is that Satanism is actually about compassion and empathy, and these 7 platitudes that I got from a website. I mean, that's I think even more ridiculous than the devil worshippers. I mean, at least the devil worshippers misrepresenting my religion, doing something evil, It's still kind of with like the evil theme, but to try to whitewash and rationalize, Satanism as like it's a positive force for humanity, and we're doing philanthropy in the name of Satan. It's it's either you're trolling with no real, good goal. Maybe you get an immediate satisfaction of raising, getting holy rollers up in arms, but otherwise, like, what the hell are you doing?
Right. It's not like we're gonna, you move into a new neighborhood and your, neighborhood Satanist is gonna come to your door with a care package.
Yeah.
That's literally not us.
Yeah. I mean, it's fine if you're a Satanist who wants to do
right
some philanthropy as an individual, or do maybe if I do move into a new place, maybe you do want to give a gift to your neighbor, but you're doing that because that benefits you yourself.
Right.
You want to establish a good relationship with all that. You're not doing it as they would say the good guy badge. Saying
exactly.
Look at I'm doing. Look at all the good I'm doing, everybody. It's the self-righteous stupidity.
Yeah, that's definitely not satanic. We don't do that.
Counterproductive pride, pretentiousness, they're in the 9 sins for a reason.
And it's not like we're, going to show up and go, have you heard the word of the Dark Lord? Can we come in and have a conversation with you? Yeah. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
That's not.
Yeah. I had an interviewer ask me a couple of years ago. I was on there saying, what what would you guys do with like, Black Lives Matter? And I gave my answer of like, well, I'm not racist, but that specific organization, I think, they're tied into this kind of corruption, this blah, blah, blah. So yeah, but what if the Church of Satan, like what if like 100,000 of you got up and said you supported Black Lives Matter? He was trying to like turn this into kind of a positive thing. And I was like, all right, well, let's think about that. If the Church of Satan came and said, yes, we support this organization, that's not going to help them at all. Why would you think that would help? We're the bad guys. Duh.
Probably the most hated for the better part of almost 60 years, and we're all just
we wear that on our sleeve, though.
Yeah, and it sucks that it has to be that way, because there's always somebody out there that will judge us, even though their book says not to judge, and only their God can judge. So they're not
but that's
really
just the nature of
following.
everything.
Yeah,
I mean,
they're
that's just the
not
nature
really
of
following their book, as it were.
Yeah, well, I was going to say that's just the nature of being, an individual and critical thinking and all the other stuff that we, represent. It's always going to be given the devil's name because the masses are afraid of those sorts of things, and so, take that and wear that on your sleeve.
I mean, apparently, I scared somebody so bad. I gave an interview for my band Iron Serpent a number of months ago, and this is what I got.
Holy mackerel. This is one of those, and I got to warn you, I'm warning you right now. I'm protected. See? I'm protected. I put together, this is strong juju, brother.
See, that's funny. And
it's so bizarre.
The interview started.
Yeah. The fact that like we live in the 21st century and that we have, internet technology to broadcast an image electronically across the world, but he still believes this perpendicular, cross of, two perpendicular lines can protect it from evil. Bizarre.
Yeah. Kyler says, I remember that. Loved it. I'm like, that was the most fucked up way I've given tons of interviews in all the bands I've done. That was by far the dumbest way to start it, but it ended up going okay after that. But it's like, well, once we got that out of the way,
kind of insulting to your guest. It's like, welcome to my show. I think you're repulsive, and I do this thing to repel you.
It just it goes all
How
back
are you?
to that superstition of, you are not going to cast anything upon me. I mean, that'd be no better than somebody who plays Magic the Gathering and really think that they can cast invisibility and all that shit. Yeah. You know what I mean? Nothing against people that like to play. I understand that. But it's like, holy crap. Oh, this is great. Sure, a painted face is spooky, as if we haven't had juggalos for 30 years. That has got to be the comment of the evening so far. That was
on a wonderful. Side note, I did a parody of Just a Gigolo called Just a Juggalo, and I did a video for it. Yeah, I think it's on one of my YouTube channels.
Ah, damn! I'm gonna have to check that out. Yeah. Absolutely. So yeah, and I think we kind of touched upon it, but we didn't exactly cover it. And I know I have my thoughts on this, but what are your thoughts on theistic Satanism?
Well, again, it's a redundant term. There's no reason to call it a form of Satanism. There's already a well-established religion called Satanism. There's already a centuries-old term for people who believe in and revere a literal devil. They're called devil worshippers.
You heard it here, folks.
So, yeah. If I don't mind if people want to go practice those things in and of themselves, but don't call it Satanism. You're not the same religion as me. You're not even a denomination. You're not close enough to be the denomination of what, I am. You fundamentally believe in something completely different and incompatible. You might wear the same tacky jewelry, but that's about all you have in common.
I love it. Some of the things that I've come across in my time is people who read the Satanic Bible and are angry that it's not what they thought it was going to be, if you could believe that. Have you ever had that happen?
Yeah, I've seen people who do that, or they write, reviews. They're disappointed with, this or that. They expected it to be that, or the other way around. You have some people who really want it to be a devil worshiping thing so bad that they just kind of skim it and they pick out pieces and they don't pick up the, the symbolism, the subtlety, or the very explicit parts, like, man has always created his gods rather than vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, people who are expecting a Jack Chick tract, I guess, they're going to be disappointed.
Do you believe in energies and whether or not energies can be powerful?
That is a good question. I do think it really does all come down to psychology. I don't rule out the possibility that there may be some metaphysical thing we just haven't discovered yet. I've certainly had experiences in my life that I felt were too strange to chalk up to mere coincidence, but I just leave it at that. I don't attach a supernatural explanation, to anything.
Absolutely.
I do think, just to finish, I do think, with magic, if you read the definition of magic in the Satanic Bible, you'll see it doesn't presuppose, require any kind of belief in supernatural, forces and all that. I do think we can shape, our will to get things that we want in unconventional kind of ways. And I do think there is a very strong power of symbolism and putting your mind in certain states of mind, certain states to focus on that sort of thing. So that
absolutely doesn't necessarily make it hocus pocus.
Yeah.
The reason I ask is, I deal with all types of people at my store. So,
Mm-hmm.
In a lot of ways, folks, I know this is probably kind of, beyond you, or possibly, I don't know, but psychology plays into a lot of this stuff. One of the things that I've realized about this generation coming up, and I'm sure, you as well, is that people are desperate to belong to something.
Yeah.
And they may have started out Christianized, but they feel like they're wanting to tap into the darker side of life, and really kind of choose things for all the wrong reasons. And, I always tell people, I said, there's a reason that most of us true Satanists are very solitary. There's not big groups of us, and if there is, that's fine. Go ahead, do your thing. But most of us, they call it kind of the lonely road, if you will. But, it's like, really take a look at things, do a lot of reading. You must read, and not the internet. There's so much misinformation. So many books you can get on Amazon, and I've checked out a bunch of them. I'm just like, this stuff is garbage on the topic. You know what I mean? Let's see. John Scruggs says, do you know if LaVey was influenced by Carl Jung? Got my start down the left-hand path learning about the Jungian shadow and wondered if LaVey had a similar influence.
I would say yes. I think there's a Carl Jung book, Man and His Symbols, maybe it might be. At least, I think there's at least one in the Church of Satan recommended reading list, the non-fiction one. I should know this already.
It's all good.
Yeah. I don't have every single item of every list memorized yet.
It's all good.
But yeah, I think there's definitely some Jungian, concepts in that, and the need for symbolism and the utilization of archetypes and all that. So that's certainly one of the things that's in Satanism's DNA.
Absolutely. And why is it so far-fetched that anyone wouldn't be influenced by different philosophies? It's like the age-old story of Odin. He plucked his eye at the tree of life to gain wisdom in all things. Well, we learn literally from everything. So I don't understand why so many people had so many problems, with this whole LaVey and Rand thing.
Yeah, especially since there's not really much of anything to really support that. I did an entire episode on Satansplain. Yeah,
I loved
it. Debunking that. Just to summarize it quickly, Rand was not a direct influence on LaVey. There are only a few things that Rand's subjectivism and Satanism, as codified by Anton LaVey, have in common. Like a skeptical atheist worldview and putting the individual above the collective. That's about it. And those things are not due to it's not because Rand directly influenced LaVey. It seems to me both were influenced by Nietzsche, and that's where some of those ideas come in. The other thing is, like, some people say, oh, like he stole this and that. It's like, well, every philosophy has its share of influences. Every religion has its share of influences. You can look up any famous philosopher and, realize, okay, they were influenced by, these other philosophers. Every philosopher comes in, has a set of influences and their own personal experiences too. And they they take what works and put a new twist on it. And that's how we get a new philosophy.
Absolutely. It's it's kind of like Al Pacino said in the Devil's Advocate.
Yeah.
I'm a humanist.
Yeah.
It's opening people's eyes to some different ideology. That's all.
LaVey was very open about his influences, and wrote about them in his biography. The original dedication page to the Satanic Bible had a list of his influences, which the publisher ended up removing due to a mistake. But you can look out the list and all that, and LaVey talked very candidly in interviews about his influences, and we don't see Rand show up in that list. Sorry.
Right. But that's the thing these days. Everyone wants to debunk figures.
It's just so stupid, especially with Satanism too, because it's like, I heard Anton LaVey was influenced by Rand. It's like trying to think of the mentality of that. Like, I was okay with the fact he symbolically affiliated with the Prince of Darkness. But when I found out that some of his stuff doesn't jive with my 21st century socialism, I was like, whoa, no can do. What the hell is that?
You see the hypocrisy there. Yeah. People need to really consider the source, read all of these books.
Yeah.
And, throughout, Anton's time serving as the high priest, obviously a lot of celebrities, people are always, you see it all over the internet. It's really interesting that the only person that there is constant chatter of, and you covered this on your podcast, is Marilyn Manson still part of the church or not?
Yeah, I mean, I did an episode where I kind of covered that, went through his whole, history of things. It seems like he has kind of distanced himself, from us especially after LaVey passed away. And then he tried saying later, like, well, that was just a thing that I did, and I have all these other influences too in this thing. And so I don't know.
Was it a sober moment, you think?
I don't know if he was into it, maybe he was into it for the wrong reasons, or if he got something out of it, I can't argue with that. I have some seen some people who've come through Satanism and feel they got something out of it, but then reached a point where philosophically they say, I don't really think I can identify as a Satanist anymore because I've had this change of beliefs, and we're okay with that. We're not a cult.
No.
Those people usually, leave and on good terms, and that's that.
All right. So how, and I know the reason, but for all of my viewers out there out in Black Flame Land and everyone who's joined us, how do you become a member?
Well, we have this explained on churchofsatan.com. If you go there to the affiliation page, you can find all the information. We have a one-time, lifetime membership fee if you want to become a registered member. And there are a lot of people who just do that, become a registered member, and that's good enough for them, and that's fine. There are other people who want to go an extra step and file for active membership, and that has a long screening questionnaire. There we go. Get the words out. But you can find all of that on churchofsatan.com.
Excellent. Because I'm sure a lot of people probably don't do that. But I have heard some people say, "Oh, the fee is too big. Why should I do this?" So why should they?
No, I mean, if this is the religion that you resonates with you, if you're a Satanist, I think it just makes sense to affiliate with the one organization on the planet that best represents that. It's not a requirement. You're not required to join the Church of Satan to be a Satanist. We say that explicitly right on the website. But as for people who complain about the fee, I think a lot of these people just can't do the math. I mean, I've been a member for years, and I did the math before, and it's like, even after adjusting for the current fee, when I take that and divide by the amount of time I've been there, I've been a member, I think it's worked out to like 83 cents a month or something like that. Or,
you see, folks,
low is something like that. But it's like, when I think about all the things I've gotten out of membership, being able to, you wouldn't have heard about me if it wasn't, for the Church of Satan, and the podcasts I've done, the articles I've published, and the events I've been to, friends I've made, and all the networking and all that. It's like the fee, I think, is ridiculously low. Every once in a great while we raise the fee because inflation changes and all that.
Sure.
And the overwhelming response from members is like, good that it's higher. It's about time. So,
and it also dispels the myth that you have to be only the wealthy belong. You know what I mean?
Which also doesn't make any sense. And some people
never understood that.
Yeah, some people also try saying, "Oh, it's like a money-making scheme." It's like, well, a one-time fee
really
is not really a good money-making scheme. No. We have enough to at least say, okay, how serious are you about this? If you don't think you're going to be a Satanist for a lifetime, but if you think you're going to change something 5 years later, then you probably shouldn't join.
Exactly.
So.
And how is the Church of Satan today active?
Well, the Church of Satan is made up of its members. So if you want to see what the Church of Satan is doing, you look at what its members are doing. And you can see on the churchofsatan.com news feed, for example, we post things, every week. Here's what this person's doing, this other person. And these are just the people who check in. There are a lot of members who don't necessarily contact and advertise, through the Church of Satan, everything that they're up to, professionally or otherwise. I don't. I don't necessarily have to make it public when I'm, doing this thing. I work with AI, professionally, and do some things with that fall into Pentagonal revisionism, but not going to necessarily, drop the company names and things like that. It's part of the Church of Satan feed.
Absolutely. Just for those that are probably out there wondering and just haven't asked, it's good to inform everyone just how, simple it is. And it all depends on how active you want to be. And how are things have you been to headquarters at all?
I have.
New York there?
Yeah, I've been Yeah, to the new Black House, which is in Poughkeepsie. It's an administrative building and home, and just like it was with the original Black House, there isn't really a need for much more than that. There have been private gatherings there, which glad to say I've been part of. I got
Fuck
to
yeah.
perform there musically on the 50th anniversary gatherings. Did
Oh,
some
that had to be
music stuff,
something.
so yeah,
Mm,
it's
mm,
fun
mm,
stuff.
mm. Fantastic. All right. So before we close out the final thoughts, my last question for you is: how do you feel Satanism is today as opposed to when you first joined?
In a lot of ways, it's really the same, and that's because humans are still essentially the same, and Satanism still is based on the idea of man is an animal, and that's something that's not going to really biologically change. Um, I've seen it go through different stages where it pops up in the news every once in a while. Like in the late '90s, there was the Lords of Chaos and that stuff, and it was in the news then. It was in the news before that with Marilyn Manson. It was in the news with Satanic Panic, and it is something that shows up in the news every once in a while as a sensationalist journalists just want to interview anybody who claims to be a Satanist and do
It's
things.
got to be the worst fucking thing ever.
Yeah, some people do. Some journalists do that credit. Do it right and actually do the research and quote accurately and all that.
Good luck.
Yeah, it's rare, but it does sometimes happen. And it's like with Satanism, we're not preaching, we're not, trying to convert people, we're not trying to whitewash things, making this a socially acceptable thing. But we do want to correct misinformation sometimes when it shows up, to explain who we are.
Absolutely, and that's one of the things that I really love about this current time in the church's history is that, man, we're out there, we're letting people know, hey, these ideas of child killing and drinking their blood and sacrificing and all this other bullshit, you know, just isn't true, folks.
Yeah. Oh, the other
You've all
extreme,
been duped.
yeah. Just as the other extreme, the idiots who think that Satanism is about, philanthropy and empathy and all this crap. No,
I don't get that.
Yeah.
I really don't.
So
You
people
guys
ask
went out
why,
the March of Dimes.
yeah. But people ask why, what you're being a gatekeeper. Yeah, you're damn right I'm being a gatekeeper because look at all the misinformation that's out there from Christians, from the media, from, the entertainment industry, all that stuff. Yeah, somebody's got to be a gatekeeper.
Have to. It's the only way to keep it, pure and, personal. These are normal, average people. It's funny, that people used to say Anton was, probably a absolutely, sad, depressed person to want to do this. And I'm just like, I'm happy as fuck. I got a beautiful family, a beautiful wife, 3 kids, not at all. Couldn't be happier, as is every member. It's a personal choice, just like it is to take any path in this life. It's what works for you. And guess what? We don't go around slamming y'all. It's you always coming to our fucking door. And that's one of the biggest reasons I wanted to have you on the show, besides being a fan of what you do on your podcast there, which you can find on YouTube. Everybody is on YouTube. Don't say you aren't. All you got to do is search it up. You will fucking find it. Listen to it. It's informative. It's fun. And, if you're someone out there that is thinking this path might be right for you, if you missed this show tonight, you can catch it on replay. It's on my Reapers Underground page for life. It's going to be shared to Satansplain as well. And it's also on Black Flame Entertainment and both of our YouTube channels. So this has, been just the biggest blast for me. Just an honor having you on the show.
Well,
and
you.
For all my my viewers out there. So for anyone that is thinking about, taking this path in life, what would you like your message to be to those folks?
Well, study and see if this is, the thing for you. Get the Satanic Bible, get a good, an actual paperback copy. The publishers of that, unfortunately, which we have no control over, have not authorized a electronic copy. Yeah, there you go. I got one of these myself.
It's literally falling apart.
Yeah, mine's beat up. I think it's my third or fourth one I've had. And in the meantime, you can go to churchofsatan.com, read lots of, we have extensive FAQ, free essays you can read there. Again, we don't proselytize, but the information is there. And if it's for you, great. If it's not for you, that's okay too.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much for joining me tonight, and Magister Bill M. This has just been, in my opinion, for a lack of a better term, a masterclass on what this truly is and all of its misconceptions.
Well, thank you.
I definitely would love to have you back on. And I know you have an anniversary coming up if you want to plug that right now.
Yes, the Devil's Mischief just passed its 20th anniversary. I've been doing that podcast for 20 years. I think it's the longest running Satanism affiliated podcast ever, I think. But the 20th anniversary happened during my move, so I've been busy, but I'm definitely going to be putting together some special episodes, several of them, probably, throughout the rest of this calendar year. Also have some fun eBay items and things like that. So more of that awesome comes.
Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
And thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join the Underground. Yes, it is the place of all underground entertainment, but also informative at the same time. So thank you again for taking the time to sit with us tonight. Everybody out in the comment section, you guys were fucking awesome. Just fantastic. So many new faces, so many familiar faces. Fantastic. I love y'all. And as you're, getting ready to lay it down for the workday tomorrow with visions of Satan in your head, always stay heavy.